Alright, well, first of all, hi Claire. Your ass is a little phone right now, that's so fucking funny. Anyway, so, goblins. I'm gonna talk about it. Also, I have to do this every time I change a slide. Yeah. There we go. So, we're starting off with the subconscious goblin. What do you probably, yes, you, think of a goblin in your head? You know, probably small, ugly, evil, mischievous, kind of an asshole. Some mixture of all three, you know?
Yeah.
Oftentimes associated with, or synonymous with orcs, trolls, etc., various fantasy beasties, you know?
Yeah.
Kind of humanoid, monstrous, you know, weak, a little bit crafty, you know? Never alone. There's never just one goblin. It's always like just bucketfuls.
Goblin gang.
Yeah, metric
Goblin
fuck tons
gang.
of goblins. Goblin gang. And of course, there's just a billion variations you can get throughout history, throughout the world, throughout different cultures. So, you know, you got some examples, including that guy. And so let's see, next up. The glorious origins of the goblin. So, the word goblin is derived from the Anglo-Norman French term goblin, originating in 1195. Commonly described as household pests or fey animals in traditional European folklore. And they spread across the continent in a similar manner to trolls and fairies, having different variations within various cultures. So again, there's a bunch of different ways to describe the goblin, but originally, you know, kind of just like that, little forest dude, sometimes, you know, steal shit, eat your food, stuff like that. So, you know, goblin variations. Hobgoblins originally referred to friendlier goblins, from the word hob referring to the shelf at the back of a fireplace, relating to hearth and home, etc. Or in Canadian for Robert, which that's just funny to me. English Puritans used the term to refer to demon, which led to Tolkien using the term to refer to bigger goblins. And that is the only picture of a hobgoblin from Lord of the Rings that I can find. I think it's from one of the video games. That's one from D&D. So, goblin variations part 2. Kobolds, you know, much more varied. Not as distinctly related, but worth mentioning. The ancient Greek Globalos, referring to mischievous sprites or rogues. This may refer to the German word kobold itself, which, while distinct from goblins, you know, did often like refer to similar types of spirits and whatnot. And lots of variations. Again, like look at the groups. You got, you know, like dog kind, the big fucking kind, little lizard kind, cute lizard kind. That's what looks like statues, like, you know, burning fire. So, worth mentioning. Lafcadio Hearn. This is important, you know? The first otaku, because he is an Irish writer, shout out, who moved to America and then settled in Japan, and he just fucking loved translating Japanese stuff into English, hence the first otaku. Look at the stash.
Wow.
And a goblin enthusiast like myself, because when he went through a lot of original Japanese legends, you know, the first time they were ever translated into English, he kind of just, whenever he came across the various kinds of yokai, like, you know, kind of spiritual monsters, he was just used goblin as you know, like a, you know, broad strokes term to identify all of them. So it was just literally, no matter what kind of crazy shit it was, goblin, goblin, goblin. So like myself, you know, he's a quirked up white boy goblin in Japan. So, you know, can a white boy culturally appropriate
a little goblin?
Now, part 2. Goblins in media.
Whoa! Whoa!
This is
I tapped that.
This is completely unedited from the original movie.
Wait, actually? That's crazy. That's insane.
There's a little bit of stretching in Photoshop.
I tap it.
Again, even just the original picture of this is fucking hilarious to look at. Just, you know. Anyway, so goblins in media. Starting off, Tolkien, granddaddy of fantasy. You know, lots of archetypes that are classics. Live in caves, big groups. You know, sneaky bastards, hate dwarfs, like, so many hate crimes against those assholes. And, of course, you got the Goblin Town song, which is coming on in a bit, you know? You got Goblin Archer, you got the Ralph Bakshi animated movie. I gotta watch that, honestly. You got the Kitty Goblin, look at those little eyes. And, of course, the Goblin King. Look at that fucking
He's
belly.
big.
Yeah.
That's like Santa.
Now, D&D, the cool uncle of things.
Oh.
So the, you know, beginner villain bandit tribes, you know, mostly, and, you know, they're like the Goombas of, you know, fantasy settings, you know, any kind of, like, you know, game or story, you know, starting enemy monster, probably going to be a goblin. Anyways, this is still awesome.
Sorry.
Still, no, it's fine. I think it's Spotify, so it's always like a fucking coin flip on if they're gonna have the right thing. Anyways, so while still evil, mostly we'll get back to that part later. It's often used comedic because the small little, often unintelligent, little monsters. So oftentimes when they try to do evil stuff, it's gonna either go terribly for them or go semi-correctly, but it's gonna go wrong at the very end, and it's gonna be a big old clusterfuck. So even at the worst, goblins, they're probably gonna be a little bit funny if they're doing bad shit. So hobgoblins are larger, more civilized warrior tribes, and civilized because it's very much like the fucking warrior, roaming culture. So civilized in the sense that they're still gonna kill you, but they're gonna have some honor about it.
Okay.
And there's lots of varieties, but we'd be here all fucking day. I'm gonna have more pictures of those later.
Okay.
We don't need to talk about all. So, moving on. That's racist.
Whoa.
Let's see. Big nose, greedy. They like sailing, often associated with in control of wealth and live in close-knit, secluded communities. That's right. It's Watto from Star Wars. I don't know what you think I'm talking about.
I don't know.
Anything like that. Anyways, here's an unrelated picture of a goblin from Harry Potter working at the bank.
I have a photo with that goblin.
I do too.
It.
I do too.
Perfect.
And from Florida.
I have a photo handing it a credit card. Anyway, I'll show you guys it later.
So, there may be some negative stereotypes associated with goblins and other, groups of people and whatnot. And of course, there's this one comedian who you may have seen going around YouTube just going like, hey, we kind of need to stop comparing Jewish people to goblins, and Jewish people, we need to stop comparing ourselves to goblins. Because if you look at, some scrawny, big-nosed, greedy fella, hugging around a sack of gold, and you go, hey, wait a minute, this is making fun of me. I think that's, we're the problem there.
Was that the racism slide?
Yeah, pretty much.
I didn't get it. I thought it was meant to be like a Trump thing.
Oh, no, often correlated to Jewish stereotypes, because, you got the aquiline nose, the broad bridge, money, that sort of thing. So yeah, unfortunate. So some people, this brings us to the next part. Further uncontroversial goblin media.
Whoa.
We're moving on straight to that. Anyways, oops. Hang on, how do we go back?
Don't go back.
Just hit the back. Hit the back slide. You see the arrow?
Yeah.
There's the one arrow that's for back.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay.
The 2000s Renaissance is expanding goblins' boundaries. This is, mostly late 2000s, early 10s and whatnot. We get new goblin rights. So D&D, fleshes out goblin culture and things like that. And in general, they're moving away from the, any kind of just race of monsters being entirely evil, that sort of thing. So you find some more goblin merchants, little fucking goobers, little different goblinoid subcultures will have different vibes. And just look at all these different fucking pictures. You got the blue goblins, which I think are kind of like psychic bugbears, which are kind of Sasquatch goblins that to drink and fuck all day and sleep around. You got those goblins who are artificially created goblinoids, and they have no idea what to do. You got big goblins. You got caveman goblins. You got, I think that's a goblin possessed by a god of some kind. Kobolds again. You have fucking Triceratops goblins. I don't know anything about those guys, but look at them down there. That's fucking weird.
Pretty epic.
And further, you have Warcraft. Or
Warcraft.
World of Warcraft. They also got that card game Hearthstone. So, heavily invested into trade and engineering. Still probably going to rob you. So, we got to keep the classics and whatnot. And they're in a very entertaining arms race with the gnomes. As in, gnomes are more like the classical artisans and whatnot, architectural wonders, engines and things like that. Goblins, half their stuff is going to try and blow you up or blow up itself. And even though you only design half of it to do that, it's probably closer to 75-80% of the time it's going to blow up anyways. A lot of their stuff blows up. So, like I said, play fast and loose with OSHA. And also, I had to include that because look at them. They look glorious.
Yes.
Furthermore, part 3.5. Would you?
Probably.
Yeah.
I'd say half of them.
Yeah.
Oh.
Don't lie,
I didn't know
Claire.
we were going after every one of them.
Oh, just in general, yeah.
I mean, any kind of goblin, any of these goblins, you can
They're
have
basically
all if you want.
human, right?
Yeah. Some of them are just a bit short.
It's not that
Kind of
non-ethical.
like elves, but different.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, Yeah. And now, part 4, I tricked you. You're
Oh,
gonna
no.
4 words. Well, the sentence you never want to hear come out of a white guy's mouth. Hey guys, time to talk about Warhammer.
No!
Oh.
So.
Is it too late to get out of the green?
Ah!
So we start with Warhammer Fantasy. You know, they used to have more classic like D&D, Tolkien, Goblin origins. You had just like fantasy monsters. Then updated later, they are now spore-based organisms like orcs.
What?
Yeah, they reproduce asexually via spores. And
What the
whatnot.
fuck?
Yeah,
Okay,
and,
interesting.
So you have a couple different subgroups. Forest goblins. They ride and worship giant spiders.
Oh.
Spider mutations may occur.
Oh.
And whatnot, like extra eyes, limbs, but you also get spider magic, things like that.
Oh.
Okay.
Kind of cool. They live in the
Okay.
forest. Some, just like feather headdresses, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of some drip. You got some cool necklaces, very nice.
I like spiders.
And whatnot. Now, night goblins, my personal favorite because they worship the bad moon, this big moon with big nose and teeth.
Oh.
Always at war with dwarfs and skaven, which are rat people
Okay.
with machine guns sometimes. This is a fantasy setting, by the way.
Yeah.
Anyways, hey kid, want to do shrooms? I say this
Uh.
because they cultivate these psychedelic mushrooms underground, which sometimes their shamans use to do magic, or sometimes they
Oh.
get these different kinds that basically cause you to go insane, but you get weird super strength. So they grab onto these heavy iron balls on chains and fucking swing them around
What the
and
fuck?
launch themselves with them. And
Yeah.
like maybe a third of the time they'll actually hit where they're going
Yeah.
intending to go. Other times they'll smash into a wall and kill themselves or plow right back through the room
Nice.
with their own friends. And also squigs.
What's a
It's,
squig?
little basically a meatball with teeth and a couple
Oh.
of legs. A bunch of variations. They can be about this big. They can be about the size of a house. They can have
Damn.
wings. They can swim. Sometimes they're like little hand
IKEA
size.
goes
Sometimes
crazy.
They use magic. Now a couple characters: Skarsnik,
Okay.
Warlord of Karak, 8 Peaks, and Gobla.
Gobbler.
So he saved a squig from being
Gobla.
bullied by some other goblins. Later
Yeah.
on, they were just like, you little fucker, we're gonna feed you to a squig. It was the same squig, and
Whoa.
it recognized
Oh
him.
my God.
Licked him like a puppy. They're now best
Aw.
friends. Now he eventually went up the ranks. Got captured by dwarfs. Told the dwarf in fluent dwarf language, your mother fucks ponies or something like that. That
Whoa.
started.
Yeah, whoa.
Eventually leading his own tribe. Now he's successful in fantasy Stalingrad. Stuff like that. And the only goblin with a half decent brain, which is kind of annoying.
Sorry, can we go back to the part where he captured a human playwright to...
Oh yeah. That's the basics for his novel, Skarsnik, which is the opening is basically like the paper being published in like a newspaper saying
Okay.
I Herman von I forget exactly am giving you the full story of Skarsnik, the true warlord of Karak 8 Peaks, and do not admit to any mental faculties being breached on my own part.
Wow.
And the closing of the book is a guy getting arrested for selling propaganda.
Ah.
So
Right.
that's the basis of the book. Now, next up we have Grom the Paunch, hallowed be his girth.
Oh.
So he was forced by a few orcs into eating troll meat. So trolls have
Oh.
like a big healing factor, so they regenerate. So they thought they'd watch a goblin blow up. Instead,
Oh.
he got fucking big,
Big.
and then was just like, hey, I'm big now. I'm gonna be in charge. Beat up some orcs, belly flopped on one, sat on a few more,
Damn.
destroyed most of Europe, in a rampage.
Oh.
Then after that, sailed to the middle of the Atlantic where the high elves are, and almost ended the world by destabilizing this big magical tornado, and then got
Okay.
killed by Elf Batman down there.
Big naturals.
And
Got killed by Elfbound. Okay,
and
yep.
has likely used centaur semen as a cooking ingredient. Anyways,
Yeah.
Wow, okay, right. Okay,
amongst
cool.
other things. 40K. So now we're in sci-fi territory
Okay.
here. So you see, that's why they have pistols. They, here less likely to do stuff on their own. So they're kind of like the whipping bitches of the orcs. They carry around their shit. You got the ammo grot, they're dressed like pirates. That's fun.
Yeah.
You got the little grot orderly helping out with medical stuff. And sometimes they're often used as target practice, cover, clearing landmines, ammunition, rations. They also farm fungi. Occasionally they'll get put in things called killicans, which is like a big, mech suit you get wired into. But they're still a goblin, so after getting revenge on people that used to kick him around, they're probably still going to get frightened by loud noises, which is very funny when it's a 10-foot tall robot. And also, I have to bear mention to the shock attack gun, which is that thing right there. You can see, a goblin getting sucked up into that. So what that does, you create a portal into hell. And then there's a different, it's like a wormhole. You get one inside the gun, one where you're roughly pointing at, and you shoot the goblin through hell, kind of like Nether travel in the Minecraft.
Okay.
So the goblin comes out, ideally, it's a friendly goblin, like, going crazy over there. Sometimes the goblin just disappears. Sometimes pieces of the goblin come out because
Okay.
something in hell, found a goblin to eat. Although the luckiest you can get is there is now a goblin either inside the person you're pointing it at, and they're dead because their organs got partially replaced by goblin.
Right.
They jam up a vehicle's, working base with it. So
Nice.
there. You got Makari, the immortal, banner waver,
Wait, what was
prophet
that
of the
thing
big-
about the goblins used to rule the orcs?
Oh yeah, so orcs and goblins were created as bioweapons by gods a long time ago, and the goblins, being a little bit smarter, used to actually be able to think and do stuff. Then the orcs had a bunch of infighting because they love fighting more than anything they were built to, and orcs got dumber, goblins got weaker. They're still a bit smarter, but the orcs are far stronger. So now the goblins can't exactly do shit because they're not smart enough to work their way up most of the time, and we'll get back to that.
Okay.
So, this guy basically accidentally got, blessed into being an immortal goblin who's the, banner bearer for the biggest orc in the galaxy, Gazgul Mag Uruk Rakat. That is meant to be Margaret Thatcher, by the way.
Oh.
Yes.
Look.
So, yeah. He's basically an unknown psychic phenomena in the shape of a goblin. And he still acts like a goblin, and his novel is from the perspective of basically a bunch of people interrogating him after, capturing him, and it is genuinely great. There's like an orc interpreter, and that gets very into acting. He often, is like, they can tell he's looking for approval on his Makari voice that he does while telling the story and translating, a bunch of fun stuff there. And there's a fun quote. It was around that point I heard the sound of a head popping, which was probably because my head popped. This comes during a montage where he's kind of having a disagreement with Gazgul, his big buddy. So he's spitefully committing suicide over and over again until he gets his point across. Because the rest of the orcs, they love him. He's kind of like their mascot. So they're just like, "Oh, bring back Makari, bring back Makari." And he's like, "Oh, fucking fine." So he gets, Gazgul reincarnates him, and he just gets himself killed again. Like one time he mentions, "Oh, remember that time I beat myself to death with a hammer?" And the guy's like, "Hey, yeah, that was a good one." So let's see. The Red Gobbo, leader of the
What's
Gretchen
there, man?
Revolutionary Committee,
What the-
inspires other goblins to seek freedom from orc abuse, styled by a red coat and
So I have a
uh,
question.
is a position passed down between goblins, often with a lot of convincing. Hey, how'd this get here? Ignore
Oh,
Vladimir Lenin.
Yeah, I was about to ask. This is okay. No questions.
Anyway.
No questions.
Whoa.
And yeah, they have a whole trilogy about
Is
that.
there questions at the end?
Now,
Yeah.
last one. Oh, there'll be time for questions. Don't worry. So, last one, Age of Sigmar, which is basically like a sequel to classic Warhammer Fantasy because they blew it up because it wasn't making enough money. I don't know how that worked because then they, started making money off it, but they were just like, no, it still blew up. But that means we
Okay.
get the Gloomspite Gits, which is fucking awesome. You get the Bad Moon again.
More
They're
Bad
looking at
Moon.
its glory. More squigs. They ride wolves now. They're doing mushrooms again. You got, different guys. You got like a sniffing squig there, shit like that. And Gobapalooza, which is basically a, semi-magical goblin theater troupe that goes into battle. Yes.
Gobapalooza.
You got the, one of the spider ones there. You got, this scaredy cat riding a big mushroom. You got a potion maker there. You got the Boggle Eye that goes like, and hypnotizes people with his big spiral eyes. And you have my favorite, Snare Face Frazzlegit. So,
Wow.
goblins, they don't like the sun. It's just like, so they have a guy making a big sun mask going, boo, boo, and that scares up other goblins, to actually have them fight and not run away from, people waving a stick at them.
Okay.
And also you got Skregrat the Loon King, Lord of the Gloomspite
Is he
Gits.
Scottish?
I have no idea what the accent
I
is.
bet he'd be Scottish. He looks Scottish.
Yeah, honestly, maybe a little bit. So yeah, Prophet of the Bad Moon. He
Okay.
occasionally hears it, speak to him. So he follows it around, predicting.
Oh,
its
he's like
movements.
Moses.
Yeah, he's basically Goblin. He's got the staff and everything. He has two staffs.
He's
actually.
he's Goblin
Moses
Moses.
is kind of a fucking chunk.
Yeah.
Central
Fucking-
antagonist of the novel Gloomspite, which I went into, thinking, oh, it's gonna be fun Goblin shenanigans. Nope, Lovecraftian horror novel.
Oh.
Still a
Wow.
great book. Genuinely recommend. Pretty easy to get
Okay.
into. But I'm just like, holy shit, because one of the most disturbing scenes I've ever read in a book.
Okay.
And
Okay.
also, he's dripped to the gills. He has two squigs carrying his cape behind
Damn.
Wow.
him. And,
Aura.
yep, and those are goblins. The end fucking.
Yay! So why is there communism with goblins?
Oh yeah. So I mentioned, most of the goblins, after they devolved into the states they are now, they're not in any kind of position of power to revolt against the orcs over them because the orcs are too strong, unless some goblins are brave enough and they take on the mantle of the red gobbo. Because there isn't just one red gobbo. Every time a red gobbo dies, they find a goblin to pass it on to them because you can't kill an idea. You can't
Right, you can't kill an idea.
The glorious revolution.
Yes.
The goblins will rise up again.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions? Oh, you say your comment first.
Oh, my comment is I like that this was done in a Tiger King shirt.
Oh, of course, because
yeah.
this is Elliot gave this to me. The first month.
Did I?
When I first moved in.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, probably not,
Good
but
job,
still,
me.
That's crazy.
We call those bookends, friend.
Thank you.
Do you think that the tiger from Tiger King would eat a goblin?
Probably most things eat goblins. Oh, I forgot to mention one thing. Back over in 40K, there's something you can get for a naval ships called grot targeting, which isn't goblins helping act as targeting spotters. It's where you make the targeting reticles on the gun look like goblins, and that makes the orcs shoot better because they're like, hey, it's a goblin, I want to shoot it. So then they aim better because they're shooting at goblins instead of just a little crosshair.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah.
I have another question. You described goblins as snotty. Do you think that they would still taste alright?
I mean, probably pretty stringy, not a
Probably
lot of
tastes like
meat on
chicken.
there, but I don't know, you could probably make goblin jerky,
Oh, that makes sense to
something
me.
like that. Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, most things eat.
I only have one more question.
Of course.
Did you make it Did you make it a decision to purposefully not include goblin porn, or was that?
I mean, I went for the would you thing, I know that a lot of people like fucking
It's a big
goblins.
genre.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It is mass, especially in hentai.
Oh, indeed. I've partaken. But I figured
Me out of
we keep
here.
it a little bit safer work. We want to get this published, obviously.
We do.
Oh.
And and that's also partially why I decided to quickly breeze past Goblin Slayer.
Yeah. Okay, that's you did include that actually. Okay. Charlie, do you have any more questions?
As another goblin in the room, I don't have any more questions, thanks.
All right. Will, do you want to say closing remarks?
Well, thank you for sitting through my goblin talk, my G talk, if you will, because you're also my G's, my goblin.
Woo!
Even you, Claire, from all the way in the Arctic, you are my G, my goblin. And hey, there might be more of these, there might not be, but at the very least, you've been educated. And I think that's a beautiful thing to learn about goblins.
Woo!
Thank
All right.
you guys.
All right. Now I'm gonna kill Charlie.